here today. Carrie Winters. Oh, our recording is in progress. And Carrie Winters is, of course, a colleague, but also a friend. And Carrie, it is just a joy to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the invite. I had to laugh. I was just talking to Tom Caudell, who's our assistant AD out in our little lobby here by our admin's office about how excited I was for this opportunity. So I've got a little game day nerves. I'm not gonna lie. Haven't had those in a while since I've taken a step away from coaching, but really excited to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. And don't let those game day nerves fool you. They're good. They're good for performance.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go to your first slide, Carrie. And as you know, you sent these ahead of time, and I haven't heard what you have to say, but I'm really interested in this slide because it's just pictures. So tell me a little bit about what I'm seeing here.
So I thought that it was important to create a little bit of background because, any time that I meet someone, whether that's virtually or face to face, I love to dive in and get to know who I'm speaking with. And so I thought that it was really important for me to do this with this crowd. I had a great athletic career here at Muskingum as a student athlete. I had a very fun coaching career before taking over as the director of athletics. And a question that I often get, Robert, is tell me the best lesson you learned as a student athlete or playing for the late legendary coach Donna Newberry.
Mhm.
And here recently, and maybe this is my maturity, but I am starting to realize that my parents were really the creators of the roots of a lot of who I am as a person. And that the lessons that they taught me growing up were just emphasized in a stronger, different way early on in my collegiate athletic career. So things that are important to me, I included on these slides, right? And so this isn't necessarily, I have more than 6 things that are of high importance, but I thought that this would be a good starting point. First and foremost, center of my life, center of my childhood growing up is my faith. God-fearing woman and really always trying to make good decisions and really have strong ethics and morals that I have learned growing up through those times, whether that be at a church-related function or a faith-based function growing up in Russia, Ohio, booming metropolis of about 450 people. My family is big to me. You see the stick figures there in the middle. If you don't know me, I have 4 children under the age of 8. And so, being the director of athletics here at Muskingum and my husband and I raising our 4 kiddos is also such a huge portion of who I am, what I do, kind of what fuels me every single day. And that is also a sign of where I came from. I also have 3 siblings. I'm one of 4. My dad's one of 11. My mom's one of 6, right? So family is huge. I'm a relator. I think that as I reflect over 38 years of life, from when I can remember, I have truly enjoyed and held on to friendships. I've truly enjoyed leadership positions, captain positions. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I was also president of the high school band, and vice president of student senate. And so the leadership that I'll talk about today is very much so athletic minded, but it is also, in my opinion, can be transitioned across a lot of different jobs and occupations. So, and the other pictures, my alma mater, my high school alma mater, Rushi, are they're the Rushi Raiders.
I
That is,
wondered what the pirate was. Okay.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of my heart. That's where I escape if I need to, is to go back. I grew up on a 180-acre farm in Northwest Ohio, and then obviously the 2 Muskingum emblems, because I'm a big believer that we educate through coaching in our department. We educate through leadership opportunities that we provide our student athletes. So I just thought it was really important to kick off with a little bit more about me.
I really like that because I think it's also, well, one, we don't lead in a vacuum. We lead from all of the experiences that we bring to it. And also, followers also bring all of their experiences to that leadership process. So it's helpful to think about. So I know right now you've got the next slide is kind of the agenda of what you're going to go over today. Tell us a little bit about that if you would.
Yeah, so as I dove into this presentation, it was really hard for me to sit down and think about 3 or 4 points of maybe what I view as strong leadership characteristics that I bring to my job every day. And so instead of points that I feel like maybe people get the opportunity to hear from every speaker or every other leadership speaker you tune into or hear through a podcast, I turn it into more of a category. And so I really look forward to diving into some of these philosophies that make me who I am in this job as director of athletics at Muskingum.
So I see your first one here is every day, and I've got it written out here too, but you're going to have to forgive me because I have bifocals, right?
You're
So
good.
every day we are establishing our own business card. Let's,
Yes.
shall we check into that a little bit here?
Let's
I like
start
how
here.
this is your business card, right?
This,
That you
this
have,
is my business card. And
yeah.
in case people didn't like this presentation, I cut off my cell phone number because I didn't want, no, I'm simply teasing. But this is actually my favorite one. And, I was sitting at a convention a number of years ago, and I flew in early, got there, checked in, kind of had some time to kill. This was the first professional conference that I had attended by myself. So went down to the hotel pub to grab a bite to eat. And I noticed this interaction that was happening at a table behind me. And it was an introductory conversation of a young professional in the athletic world with a headhunter, right? Somebody that was trying to help this young person maybe find their forever fit or that next step. And I sat there and I thought to myself, a business card really says a lot about who someone is without even realizing, right? It's not just a Twitter handle, it's not just a cell phone number, it's not just an email, but you're really exchanging who you are. And so let me explain a little bit more about where I want to go with my this business card thing.
Mhm.
When I introduce myself as a leader in this department or to someone that is a colleague, you're going to be evaluated on every action that you make, every statement that you make. Sometimes your lack of statement or your lack of action. And that's the world of athletics. Wins and losses are right at your fingertips as soon as that game's over. People are questioning coaching decisions. People are questioning, why did you go with this call? Or why did you start this quarterback? Or why did you start this setter? And so that was a reminder of me that when I am creating my identification, aka my business card, I want my actions and my statements to be something that I'm really proud of. So when I hand my business card over to a colleague or to someone that I've just met, I am handing over a really profound, I don't want to say a document, right? A business card isn't necessarily a document, but it's an identification piece. And so I often tell our young coaches in our department and our head coaches in our department, um, you want to be creating a good business card, because if you ever leave here, people will call us, they'll call other people that and they'll ask questions about your visibility. Or were you on time? Did you show up to events? Did you welcome recruits and alumni back to campus? How professional are you? Did you look like a bum when you went to work, or did you dress the part? Did you look like a coach? Did you look like an administrator? How do you communicate? Goes onto your business card. Do you find a way to relate to 18 to 22-year-olds in one conversation and then switch that over to finding ways to communicate to board of trustees? What are similarities? And so I think that in today's business world, even though business cards are going electronic, I feel like these days, it is such a powerful connection of you're always being evaluated in this field, and in a leadership position, that's what you earn, right? It's not a negative, it's an extreme positive. And when you do the things well, you've got a lot to stand up to. You're proud of what you represent. So I always try to engage as much as I possibly can in the bullet points that are in front of you today. That the last one of building trust and honesty. I tell you what, we live in a world where trust and honesty are very easily broken. And
Mm.
when you have the ability to create trust within a department or create trust within a staff, people then want to work with you, and they don't just view it as working for you, and so that's also something that's very important to me. You
Can
just
I just
never know who's going to say, tell me what you know about Robert McManus. Tell me what you know about Henry Stanford, right? So we're always working on building a good name.
I wanted to ask you a follow-up question on this. And that's regarding and sometimes your lack of action. I we had someone once say that integrity was simply doing what you said you were going to do, but that it doesn't mean just the big things, right? But even the little things. So if you say, I'm going to return your email today, that before you go home that day, you return that email, right? And that really stood out to me as far as it's even those little things and that lack of action. Can you talk a little bit more about how a lack of action also may reflect on your business card metaphor here?
I think a lack of action does more damage to your identification, way more often than not. There are some times where people are best if they learn through faults, right? Or through mishaps. And I don't necessarily want to say through failure, because I feel like if you come out on top or positive on the other side, it's not necessarily a failure. But there's a lot of times where, and especially we allow it as a society almost. And I know there's a time limit. We could talk about this kind of stuff all day, but where we allow things to slide
Mm,
because we want maybe that instant gratification a little bit sooner, or maybe we think to ourselves, that's not going to lead into anything else. This was a one-time mistake. Um, just acting on those little topics or those little annoyances or those little frustrations when they're happening is always going to put you ahead. And to be honest with you, Robert, I am far from perfect. I'm in year 3 of this position, and there are a lot of things that I've learned not to do in the first two years. And one of them is actually evaluating what happens when you don't act on things that could hurt an office culture or a team
mm,
culture. Um, and so I have found the positives in why it is important to showcase action. And it doesn't have to be loud action.
mm-hmm.
If you've got a coach that maybe isn't professional in every situation, or you've got a student athlete that's showing up late 3 out of 5 practices a week, you can have quiet closed doors conversations about that. They don't have to be broadcast from a in a staff meeting or in a department meeting or in 2024 on social media. But they do you do want to take action where you feel like it's needed.
That's very helpful. I've got a next slide. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay. What does your business
What is
card that look
Yes.
like?
What does your business card look like? I kind of forgot about that little cool fade in that I threw in here. I just wanted to, before we did go to the next slide, just hit on, especially for maybe the students on the call. I saw some of our students pop on here. As you're going into your adult life, if as college graduates here soon, what kind of business card have you created in the last 4 years? For our young professionals on the call, what does your brand or your business card look like currently? And only individuals can truly evaluate what they want to change, what they need to change, and how to get there. But it is also very important to keep that kind of on the back of your mind of assessing yourself and assessing how you handle situations and what you're putting into everything that you represent.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the next slide if that's all right
That's
here.
perfect. No more fade-ins.
Okay.
So, something else that's important to me, and I actually did take this from my college coach that I played for here at Muskingum, but we live in a society that at times would rather be credit card mentality than a debit card culture, right? Or culture, debit card mentality. And what I mean by that is we want things now, and we want to pay for them later. Or You know, if something's broken but we're winning, or we're seeing success, you know what, let's set that brokenness aside right now and we'll fix it later. But chances are that's always going to catch up to you, and that's going to hurt you in the long run. And something that Coach Newberry always instilled in us is you have to earn what you get, and get what you earn like right now as you're living it. And we're going to be a much stronger unit if we do that. You know, and making sure that our coaches realize that, you know, that we're following policies and procedures as an institution, that we're living up to our department standards, and that we're not taking shortcuts to get that credit card. Like, we're going to buy this right now even though we can't afford to buy it right now, and we're squashing all of those items, and we're really taking care of business and building for the future, each step of the way, each moment at a time. You know, as an 18-year-old, I heard my college coach talk on this topic, and I was like, man, I don't even know what she's talking about. Like, what is a credit card? What is a debit card? You know, back then you had cash or you had checks. And it's just a good reminder, to always really live in the moment and don't put things off and pay them off later down the road if at all possible. So,
You know, when I saw this slide, I thought about a statement that one of my coaches had when I was a kid, right? And I remember him saying this, do whatever it takes to win,
mm,
right? And I noticed here you say you can't be okay with whatever it takes to kind of get that result. It seems like you would take issue with what my coach had to say. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I just really heavily believe on proper process and proper build up in a team environment. And I'm not just talking, yes, I'm talking today athletically, but I'm talking overall in general, marriage, relationships. Um, you know, you've got to you have to work hard for everything that you want improvement in. And I just often feel as if when you don't put that work in or that effort in to strengthen a relationship, or to over communicate, or to properly, prepare your team athletically, that it's going to come back and give you a lot of issues farther down the line. It's almost like sweeping things under a rug, right?
Mhm.
And so that's really what I take from it.
Thank you.
It's hard. It's hard to not talk about how it improves your, you know, your credit score and all those things when you're not talking about credit cards. But we'll throw that to the side.
Well, that's a whole other webinar, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Are you ready for the next slide?
I am. Adversity. Yes. This is one of my favorite sayings. And, you know, I think that my dad, I just credit my parents. I've just had an unbelievable upbringing. I'm 38 and I'm still being brought up, I feel. But um, I am an optimist at heart. Like, I just believe in positivity. I believe in energy that you can create. I believe that, I used to really greatly dislike the saying, things happen for a reason. But as I have taken this leadership role on at a higher level, overseeing more than just a softball program, we've got 25 programs here on our campus. I just feel as if it's really important as leaders to take a step back when you receive bad news, when you receive a frustrating email, or, you know, you want more money in a budget, and there's just not money to be put into a budget, or you want a donor to donate to a scoreboard, and you can't find that out there, right? You've got to find the silver lining in that frustration. You have to let your mind become creative. You have to see the good that maybe comes along with it. You lose a coach, right? Like, we see it in Division 1 sports all the time, where there's coaching turnover based on wins or losses. What's the positive of that coaching turnover? You know, and instead of sitting on the negatives and saying there's nothing good going to come from this at all, I truly believe that in all adversity there is a silver lining somewhere. You just have to look for it. Um, and like I said earlier, having a creative mind and letting your mind be creative during those moments, in my opinion, I think makes it that much easier.
So, Carrie, this is interesting because I have always thought of pessimism and optimism as a trait, right? You're either a pessimist or an optimist. And yet I do know that optimism has shown to be one of the things that we really look for in leaders, right? And that followers need that. If you do have a more, let's say, pessimistic way of viewing the world, how can you train yourself to be more optimistic and to actually, I guess, own that optimism as opposed to just kind of painting it on a pessimist face?
Sure. Man, I appreciate that question. And believe me, again, I'm gonna say it. I am not perfect, right? And every ounce of me, there are moments where I am leaning more pessimistic than I am optimistic in situations, especially the bigger, heavier situations, right?
Mm.
That just seem like they're coming into your life. They're squeezing every ounce out of you. It feels like, where is the oxygen? My advice in those situations, an example right now, our administrative assistant has been here for about a year. Having someone like her in your life as a professional and a leader who can just remind you things are going to be okay, right? There's good that's going to come out from it. I think that everyone needs that person. I think everyone needs a person to encourage the positive. Because honestly, if you're a good listener and and you're hearing what people are saying through that, how are you doing? It's going to be okay. Something good's going to come out of that. You're going to continue to believe it. And so always have somebody that's positive if you lean more pessimistic in your life. And the other thing that I would suggest, and I started to do this about halfway through my coaching career, I coached here for 12 years, is at the end of the day, before I'd lay down and go to bed, I would always end with a positive in my mind. So no matter what I felt like was at the time just taking over my mind, I would go to bed, close my eyes on a positive, and I'd pray about it or I'd think about it, I'd reflect about it. And then I'm going to tell you, more often than not, I woke up in a much better mood and in a better headspace that next morning. Um, Post-it notes are great. I know friends and fellow ADs and coaches that have post-it notes on their computer, that say what happened that was good today or what's good. And so just really creating visuals or building some type of ritual. I don't know if thinking positive before you go to bed is a ritual, but just make sure you make time for that.
I think it is. I like the idea of surrounding yourself with positive people, this idea of gratefulness that has been so much a part of our culture. There's some wisdom there, right? To be
Yes.
doing that. And these reminders, I think that those are very helpful for us. Are you ready for the next slide?
Let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
First off, it's like 900 degrees in my office right now. And so when I made this slide, it was a little bit cooler because I feel like there's just warmth radiating out of this picture. But don't be soulless, seek solutions. Part of who I am is I always want to be someone that's viewed as a kind person. I often use humor, here in my job to keep things a little bit more lighthearted. But I genuinely care about everyone in our department. I want the best for them, and I want to make sure that they feel supported, not just from a professional side, but from a personal side, from a mental health space. But kindness, in my opinion, and leadership is a true characteristic. And I'll tell you that um, I've worked with some people that might lack in this area, and you can tell, like,
Yes.
do they really care about my family? Do they really care about my team's success? Do they really care about the student athletes? And it's just a good thing when you're trying to work with people and trying to find solutions for the good. And I think that that's a lot about what leadership is, Robert. I think a lot of times when I walk in today, I say, all right, what problems are going to come our way? Where's my headspace? And how are we going to make the most of them? So always being kind through everything is important. Going along with that, as a leader, you've got to make time for your people. And in these examples here that I've listed, these are my workplace people, our people that
Mhm.
make Muskingum University better, right? From our coaches to our sports information, to our athletic trainers, to the student athletes, to the janitorial staff, to the grounds that cut our grass. It's just choosing to never be too big, too good for a single person that contributes to what we're doing is really important to our culture in Muskingum athletics right now. Um, and you know, I think that that goes a long way. Again, it kind of goes back to my first slide of you're creating your own business card. Um, you know, I want our grounds crew and our janitorial staff and support staff to feel exactly as our head coaches do, or our
Mhm.
SIDs that are spending way more time with me. Um, Words matter, energy matters. You know, and in today's day and age, and I think since the beginning of time, let's be serious. It's not just 2024. Having visions and kind of leaning, Lean, enunciating that improperly maybe, but leaning in for solution seeking outcomes is critical in any leadership. Um, you know, nobody wants to work for, one of my favorite Coach Newberry quotes is nobody wants to work for a moron, you know, and I hate to
Mm.
say that, but that is so true, right? Like if you lack vision, if you lack energy, if you lack knowledge of what you're doing, you know, it's just all impacted by this. And ultimately, I said it earlier on one of my slides, I want everyone associated with Muskingum athletics to work with me. You know, a title is a title in my opinion. You know, you go to some fancy dinners, you might go, you know, go to some meetings that maybe others wouldn't go to, but everyone here is working alongside of one another. And I've worked in some with people that just don't have that mindset, and it's challenging. I don't want to, I don't want people to drive into work and say, man, I work for her, right? Like I
Mm.
want them to say, I get to work with her. And so that's really why this slide is important to me. And that's the energy and the wording that I always try to use with Muskingum athletics.
You know, Carrie, energy is a difficult thing to, I guess, grasp, right? Because sometimes you know that the words are right. You did a great job, right? But the energy is not there. But it's also this, I don't know, it's an intangible. It is the optimism. It is the way that you interact with people and the kindness. How can someone go about cultivating that positive energy that they can then send out to the world and their followers and achieve their goals?
So being a little bit brutally honest, I guess, is my advice is just to not take yourself too serious. I
Mm,
think that there are many leaders in the world that take themselves too serious and miss out on a huge opportunity to be raw with fellow staff members, with colleagues. I have laughed really hard about things that I've done in this office with my colleagues. And I think that those moments are appreciated because though there are times where I have to buckle down and make hard decisions, or I've got to be the one in the room that says, "Hey, we're not going to do it like this anymore, group." They understand that as a leader, I'm human too. I can't
mm.
tell you the number of times that I miss it, like I pronounce a word wrong, right? And I think Tom Caudell's on here; he's probably laughing. Or how many times it takes me to record a video. You know, it's enjoying those moments and really creating the energy. I tell you, a smile goes a long way. You know,
Yeah.
when you just said, "Wow, you've done a really nice job," and you didn't smile, I actually gave you credit because I'm like, I don't know how you didn't just smile right there. Um, but showcasing that empathy and showcasing that just kindness, overall kindness and enjoyment, to me is huge.
All right. I think we've got one more major slide. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
I feel like I just kind of thought regurgitated on this slide, to be honest with
Okay.
you. We can kind of we'll go through this. I'll hit on some of it, Robert, and then you know, I just hope that maybe it helps. If it helps one person on this slide be better in a conversation, then gosh dang it, it got its job done. But no matter what people say, if you hold a leadership position, you have some form of competitiveness. And
Mm,
I think that great leaders thrive in the competitiveness mindset. Whether that's in a game of pickleball, or whether that's in a conversation, or whether that's in a presentation, right? So in athletics, you associate competitiveness with win-loss. I mean, it just happens.
Mhm.
If you're not in the athletic world, competitiveness is good versus bad, right? Like I did a bad job or I did a good job on this. Or one step down, or I guess maybe lateral to that is excellent versus average. You know, there are very few good, strong leaders in the world that walk through the day and say, I just gave that average energy, average effort, right? And so you're still competing with something. And so that's where I was like, you know what, competitiveness, if anyone knows me, I hate to lose. And maybe that's why I was the president of all those groups in high school, because I was like, gosh dang it, this is a competition. I want to lead. But you know, my next point, lean in with curiosity. There are some heavy things that happen in people's lives. There always have been.
Mhm.
And I think now the difference, right, that we hear so often is that it's because of these things. You know, people say cell phones are
Right.
at your beck and call, and they're right there. But before I assume, um, you know, if there's an issue that happens in Muskingum athletics, you're obviously taking your mind somewhere. You're wrapping up youthfulness of a coach, you're including roster size, you're including the academic makeup of a team. Um, but what you're not necessarily always including is wonder what's going on, right?
Mhm.
So my recommendation is just always lean into all communications and all conversations, whether that's solution seeking, because there's been an issue, or whether that's just a day in and day out conversation. I think the more that you can lean in with curiosity with your coworkers, with your student athletes, the better the reward. You know, what we permit, we promote. That goes back to the business card slide. Goes
Mm,
back to what I
mhm.
was saying in my first year as an athletic director here. Um, you know, I think I spent, I don't think, I'm pretty confident that I know I spent too long of a time in year one when I was interim, um, just assuming people were going to figure things out. And when I was permitting things to happen, I was actually promoting it in a department, saying that's okay under my leadership, you know,
Mm,
and so I just really suggest that, you know, and if you're ever in a spot where you've got to make decisions, or you've got to evaluate for change, just remember what you permit to happen, you're actually promoting on the other
mhm.
hand. Um, I've said on every slide, Robert, words matter. I'm going to repeat it for my 3,000th time. You know, the difference, if I'm starting a conversation with someone down our hallway, and I come in and I sit down and I close the door and I say, I have an issue,
Mm, mhm.
chances are the other person on the other side of the conversation is going to get defensive quick, right? Um, versus, hey, tell me what happened. And even versus, let's find a solution to the situation that happened last night, right? So like that last one is, we're going to work together, we're going to evaluate what happened, and we're going to fix it. So man, the difference in that wording alone is crazy. Um,
Yes.
I worked with a professional coach last year. She was great. I was stubborn as heck in the beginning. If any of you ever have an opportunity to work with a professional coach, do it. You will pull good from it. But she always said, make sure you leave meetings by rounding it out, concluding talking points, main focus points, or goals of that conversation, so that you're leaving that meeting always on the same page. I was like, that's brilliant. Um, but versus and, you know, it's such a lot of people will say, you know, I had a great time last night, but
Mm.
then whatever
It
comes
negates
next,
everything that comes before it, right?
correct? Versus I had a great time last night, and right. So it is just so many reminders in the English language, and any language, that wording is so important. Um, and I don't need to necessarily go over these. I want to make sure that we have some time for questions and answers, but just celebrate the good. You know, there's so much negative in the world, and um, celebrating the good just makes work fun, and acknowledges hard work on a lot of parts. So yeah, it's good.
Well, Carrie, I could talk with you for hours and always enjoy our conversations. And I'm glad to kind of open this up to other people as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen. And then Henry, I think that at this point, we're going to ask people to join us, maybe turn on their cameras, their microphones, and ask any questions of our guests that they may have here. Did we have any in the chat, Henry, to begin the conversation?
Yes, we have one question in chat. How do you think the culture of sport can affect team chemistry?
Mm,
Did I see that JC asked that? Did
Yeah.
I see that when it popped up? So she might need to clarify. But are you asking here the culture of sports across the board?
I
I'll
don't
just
know if
Well,
in the chat. Do you
okay.
have
she's in, but she's not she hasn't opened up her mic yet. So
That's okay. And again, everyone, please feel free to open up your mic
I see
or
her.
oh
so okay. So JC says the mic isn't working. Um,
Okay.
so JC, you're happy, you're welcome to put it in the chat as well. Um, but yeah, that culture of sport, I if I could poke around that, I do think the culture of sport can be maybe too competitive sometimes, at least from a standpoint of maybe it goes back to doing whatever it takes to win, right? Even some things that may not be the right process. Does sport perhaps encourage that? I don't know. Can you talk a little bit to that?
I would say that the coaches that spend a lot of time on um mental training,
Mm,
mental health, as well as the improvements on the physical side of a sport. Those sports, in my opinion, their team chemistry is top notch. You know, when each athlete understands their role, when each athlete is being held to the same level of standards, I would say that those programs have the best team chemistry.
mm,
The world that we live in, where again you kind of are living in that it's all in your face right now world, and do whatever it takes to win no matter what. Coaches that fall in that category, I do believe that their team chemistry is different. And obviously it's been a couple of weeks since I've been in any kind of MLB like New York Yankees locker room or anything, but that's my answer. If anybody has a way for me to get into the New York Yankees locker room, you can drop that in the chat too.
Well, they are very. I just heard yesterday that the Yankees and the Dodgers are going to be going to the World Series. It
Yeah.
hasn't happened in 30 some years. It's all very exciting. So yeah. What other questions might our audience members have for Carrie? Again, you're welcome to just turn on your mic or question. I see Caitlin. Caitlin, did you have a question for Carrie?
I did have a question. First of all, it's lovely to see you guys again. My question was, so with the fast pace of, working in athletics, how do you manage, getting the tasks that you need to get done and then also supporting your staff, kind of how you said with like leaning on them?
So Kate, I'm going to tell you, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining today. I will tell you that I am, again, not human. And the number of just random emails I get matched up with the important emails that I get in a day are crazy. And so I always tell our coaches to kick things back to the top of my inbox if they haven't heard in 2 days, like if they haven't had a response. I really operate with an open door policy other than when I'm on a Zoom call. But I try to make myself extremely visible to everyone. And well, honestly, if a coach calls me at 11 o'clock at night, I'm going to pick that phone call up. So I think the visibility is really important, but I do always tell them if your question or ask goes unresponded, I promise it's not intentional. Just kick it back to the top of my inbox, and that works. And I even include include the wording, "Hey, I'm kicking this to the top of your inbox." Thank you for that.
Thank you. I think we've got another person who might want to ask a question. Yes?
Hi, Robert. Yes, my name's Taylor Huey. I'm the head volleyball coach. And yes, I work with Carrie every day. I've actually, I mean, a little bit of backstory. I was an athlete here. I was a volleyball athlete. And while Carrie was a softball coach, and then I've got to see her go from the softball coach and transition into the interim AD and now into the, obviously the athletic director position. But you keep talking about, whatever it takes. And I'm in a position right now, and Carrie, this isn't really a question, it's just more of like a conversation at this point. I'm at a point in my program with the volleyball team of doing whatever it takes to win. And I guess when I think about doing what it takes to win, it's taking every single one of us to have success and to win a ball game. And so sometimes that is some people out on the floor physically. What's it going to take for you to win a ball game for us? Is it going to keep balls up off the floor? Is it going to be putting balls away offensively? If you're on the bench, giving all your energy that you have to the people on the floor, giving whatever knowledge you have, shots to take. And when I say do whatever it takes to win, in my head, it's going to take all of us, all of our energy, all of our knowledge to come together and really pull out this team win, right? And I guess you keep saying too, like whatever it takes. And sometimes that can be taken as a negative. And the way I say it in recruiting is I'm definitely not a coach that's win at all cost. To me, winning at all costs, that is being negatively recruiting, highlighting more of the negative or the mistakes that we make compared to what we can do in the future, right? So I like to say, yes, do whatever it takes to win as a more positive take on that,
Right.
compared to the win at all cost. To me, that is, we're not doing the right things, but we're still coming out with a win, right? So I guess that's just like a talking point. And Carrie, you can kind of, put in your 2 cents about that, but that's kind of how I see it. And every time you said whatever it takes, I'm like, man, I've said that a lot recently. But it's definitely more of a well-rounded team effort type of deal, especially where I'm at in my program.
Another example of wording matters, right?
Yes.
And that was when you were saying that, I was like, as soon as you started talking, I'm like, I know exactly what you're gonna say. And so yeah, I definitely meant student athletes not going to class, but then starting in their game on Wednesday. And so wording definitely matters. So yeah, good point.
No, and I appreciate that too, because sometimes the wording in our head doesn't match the meaning in someone else's head,
Yeah.
right? So I think that we have, again, that's part of being curious, and it's very helpful to think about, okay, what I might mean by that may not be what someone else means. So thank you very much. I had to change my light. Forgive me for having to step over to the window for a second there. Good. What other questions or other comments from other folks?
So Robert, I had a question for Carrie in regards to being an individual that was successful in high school, transitioned to college, had a lot of success as an athlete, then into a coaching capacity, championship coach, going to the postseason, now as an athletic director. What are things that you felt were instrumental in your progression in leadership right now, and how that can also be transitioned over to those that want to go into like corporate America and use their athletic background as the beacon to their leadership as the CEO, the director, or administrator?
Thank you for that. Now I'm sitting here thinking, man, let's look back on the last 38 years of my life and answer that in 2 sentences. I honestly believe it goes back to work ethic and being who you truly are all of the time. Some of my absolute least favorite years of coaching is when I tried to match the coach that I played for. And realistically, we had two totally different personalities. And because I was who I am, like what you're seeing today on the call, 8 to 3, and then I'd switch it off and turn into somebody that I wasn't from 3 to 6 during practices or games. My leadership style was not beneficial to very many. It was demanding, but it was not beneficial because I didn't match who I wanted to be or was at heart. So I just recommend sticking true to who you are. Having a little competitiveness is always good. That definitely didn't hurt anything. And again, that's not necessarily win-loss. That's just good, bad. That's excellent. difference between excellent and great. So, well, excellent and great are pretty much the same thing. But you know what I mean? So I would attribute it to
Variations,
those things.
right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I've often thought about that with some of our students because I also think, especially for undergraduate, but our graduate students as well, that it's important to be able to articulate all the leadership lessons that you have learned in athletics to the world of work, whatever that may be. And the world of work may still be in athletics or not, right? Is there any wisdom you can give us for teaching students to be able to articulate how those lessons, those leadership lessons that they've learned in athletics can, let's say, make its way to a job interview?
I think that you need to, as student athletes or as young professionals or young people, I think that what you need to do is really truly focus on what's important to you, what has made you uncomfortable in your life at moments that you have persevered through, or some people can't be early. It's like a genetic thread, right? Like they just don't have the ability to be early. And then how early, how you learn in college that you can't walk into a class late.
Mm.
And so I think take those lessons and really lean on them, and that will help you. I've got like a cough, Robert.
I'm sorry. Feel free to get a drink of water, whatever it takes. I've been thinking a lot about what we've been saying here as far as your own voice and finding your own voice as a leader. And I think about your coach, Coach Newberry. She has an international reputation. I don't think sometimes that people that are new to Muskingum realize what a legacy Coach Newberry left for all of the United States and international sports in regards to really being one of the first pioneers for Title IX. And I often think about these wonderful leaders that I see, but if I try to adopt their style, if I try to adopt all that they did, um, it's not going to be authentic. And I'm probably not going to I'm going to be a cheap imitation. I'm never going to be the real McCoy, if you will. And so I really take what you're talking about there is finding your values, like kindness, like doing your best, what your communication is, right? And kind of making that your voice. Now, someone else might have a different voice. Maybe their value might be um, it's hard to compete with kindness, but it might be always being like, for example, the idea of integrity that I mentioned before, and integrity meaning that you always do what you say you're going to do, right? That is kind of your hallmark. I think that that's really important for us to remember that we have to find our own voice as opposed to just singing someone else's voice. Thoughts?
Absolutely. And it makes the workplace more fun. It just when you've got a lot of different personalities and you've got a lot of voices that are want to still be on the same bus or boat, whatever you want, what vehicle you want to use to travel and to travel with. It's important. That was a lesson I learned very early, that be who you are. Don't try to be somebody else.
Yeah, I remember someone I interviewed one time, and he worked for Jack Welch, who was a very well-known corporate titan back in the 80s and 90s, right? And he said the worst thing about Jack Welch was everyone wanted to be Jack Welch. And they were all these little imitations, right? As opposed to being themselves and really finding their strengths. Other questions that we might have from the audience before we start to wrap up here. We still have about 9-10 minutes, so we can take some more questions or we can wrap up early, but I want to make sure that we have the chance to have everyone ask a question or participate in the conversation.
Everything you talked about, Carrie, I definitely, I've seen it in my roles over the years, and I think it's dead on as far as being authentic and being true to yourself and true to those around you, and how leadership can be, you know, an area that if you're yourself and you present yourself in that manner, you become a stronger leader each opportunity that comes your way. So Caitlin,
Yeah.
you turn your camera back on. Do you have a question?
Yeah, one kind of just popped into my head. So you mentioned like different types of leadership styles and, being your true self. How do you how do you find that leadership style? What do you find, like, how do you find your niche, I guess? Is it trial and error? Is it, because now that I am currently trying to work my way into athletics and I am becoming a coach and a leader in athletics, trying using like leadership styles that I've seen people use on me isn't necessarily working for me.
Yes.
How do you find that like how do you find your way, I guess?
I think that the more comfortable that you are with yourself, the easier that it is. Um, the more comfortable you are asking questions, asking for help, the easier that it is. Um, and I would just encourage you to listen. If you can, if there are ever opportunities for you to attend speakers, or if there are any opportunities for you to just, ask like our OAC commissioner, our new commissioner, what podcast do you recommend, or are there any good YouTubers out there that have good series and female leadership and athletics? That's really how I feel like I kind of developed in areas that I wasn't as confident in. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, showing some, and I'm going to go back to the word of just rawness, and showing that you have the awareness of your weaknesses. I need to study, I need to strength, I need to educate myself, is huge in leadership. Ultimately, you're going to get to a spot, Kate, where you get to hire your own staff. And I tell you what, we've hired almost 100% new turnover. Since I've been here, our football and our track and field coaches have been the same, but I believe everyone else is new. And our culture has taken off, our retention has taken off, our energy has taken off, our visibility has taken off, and just surrounding yourself with good people helps in a lot of those categories.
Kate, I really appreciate your question too. What I really liked about your presentation, Carrie, is you really started with who you were and your values. And I don't know if a lot of people have had the chance to really articulate that. What are their values? What do they want to be known for? What are those experiences that have really made them, whether it be the faith or family or their, and I think leaders are thoughtful, good leaders are thoughtful about their values and what makes them who they are. So I always encourage students to think about that and write that down. I think it's a good way to start, and I appreciate you modeling that for us, even in this presentation here. One more question. Well, Carrie, it is always a delight to chat with you. And I really thank you for being a part of this conversation today. I think that athletics can be an enormous part of a student's leadership development. And just really wanted to off my hat to all the education that happens on the field as well as in the classroom, right? It's really the essence of applied leadership. So thank you, and thank you for presenting today.
So great, so fun. Thank you. Loved it. Have a good day.
Henry, do you want to wrap up for us?
Yeah, so again, thank you very much for our presenters, Carrie and Robert. Outstanding presentation. Definitely encourage you to visit our website for our past sessions we've had here within the Lesson in Leadership series, and then also see this edition of the series in the next couple of weeks. We encourage you also to visit our website to look at our Masters of Applied Leadership, our Doctor of Applied Leadership, and also our MBA program. MBA program just started this past fall, and we have three great master's or doctorate level programs. And for those students who are on the call, we have a very good program when it comes to the Leadership Academy that we offer every semester. So definitely thank you for those on the call, and everyone have an outstanding afternoon. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Carrie.